What's up, guys? Let's get better at the 90-90 position. Perform these one at a time individually, or follow right along so that we can get better hips for health and performance, and to make it easier so that we can get into this grueling 90-90 stretch. Start with pitch and stretch. Just bring that knee up by the hands. The further that foot is up towards your hands, the deeper that stretch is going to be. Sink your weight down. You can leave your hands down on the ground as we start. We're working to increase the overall flexibility of the glute and the hip capsule so that it makes it easier for us when we get into more of the 90-90 movements. Now we're going to increase that, and you're going to try to lift up your hands and sink your chest down a little bit further, keeping your shoulders back. And then the key here is to push your knee into the ground, activate the glute as you drive back up so that we can start to get some movement and strength within that glute. Hands are going to come up, chest goes down, and then push that knee into the ground. The chest is going to rise up slowly, sink down into that stretch, and then drive up. Nice, here we go. Now we're going to do an assisted internal-external rotation of the hips from 90-90. You can start with your knees bent at 90 degrees, heels on the ground, hands are behind you, and we can just sink side to side, back and forth. Drive that knee down into the ground. You're going to feel a stretch in your groin and the inner hip as you do so. Exhale as those knees hit the ground. Good, now we're going to increase that and lift our hands up, chest nice and big, sit tall, and now we're going to actively use the muscles of our hips to get into those positions. Core is nice and tight. Scoochy scooch. Good, now we're just going to break this down a little bit further and just work on single leg external rotation. So sit nice and tall, hands are up, and just with that back leg that's at 90 degrees, squeezing the hip, you're going to open up that knee as wide as you can. The foot's going to come flat, but then you return right back to base. Alright, flip over to the other side. External rotation with just the back hip. I like breaking these down because we can really focus on the single muscle group in the joint capsule that we want to. Feel free at any time to pause and to work on one of these movements individually. If you feel like you're struggling with one more than the others, come back to it and continue to practice. Now we're going to go with that back leg internal rotation lift off. Drive the knee into the ground. You can have your hand down on the ground as we start. We'll increase that here in a second while we lift the hands up. Try to lean first before you lift off. Try to minimize the momentum. You're going to be able to do that by squeezing the core as hard as you can. Create tension throughout the entire body and isolate that hip when we try to squeeze. Flip over to the other side. Hand can be down as we start into this right hip. Quick 1-2 count. And here we go, let's make it hard. Lift off, right back down. The less you lean, the more you're going to get out of it. The key here to continue breathing is pursing your lips so that when you breathe and you exhale, it tightens your core for you and continues to keep that core tight. We're gonna go with a fold over, and we're gonna flow back and forth from side to side. So you're gonna hit that internal, external rotation there, and then collapse your chest over. Really try to pull that chest out in front of you and keep your chest from rounding and your back from rounding over top. You can see there that I pulled my shoulders back. I'm trying to as much as I can. Bring that chest over out in front. You should be feeling a nice stretch in that back hip. In the back of the hip, rather, the front hip. Nice work. Now we're going to close those angles off just a little bit. More of a shin box position. You're going to thrust your hips forward by placing your hand behind you, driving your hips up, reaching up with the opposite hand, and really getting a full front body stretch and activating those glutes at the same time. Really squeeze the glutes as you drive your hips forward. Feel a nice stretch in that front leg. Switch over to the other side. Press that hand to the ground, stay strong in that shoulder. Drive those hips forward as far as you can, reaching up tall to the sky. Good. Now here's for the fun stuff. We're gonna do negative 90-90 hip thrusts. So we're going to practice by helping yourself up to the top position and then driving your hips backwards as your chest comes down and controlling that movement as your hips hit the ground. So what's happening is your glutes are flexed at the top and then they elongate as we go down to the bottom of that movement. Picture that, especially that glute that's in front. So right here I have my right glute, it's contracted here, and then it elongates and stretches as I go to the ground. Control that movement throughout the entire thing. This is a great place to start if you have never done the shin box thrust or 90-90 thrust. No protractors here. Who's measuring? Now we're going to level it up here with a full shin box thrust. Contract those glutes as much as you can. Drive the knee into the ground. It helps by leaning forward slightly with your chest, thinking of driving your butt back behind you. Squeeze the glutes. Keep the abs engaged. Ribs are down. Nice neutral spine. Flip on over. Let's do it to the other side. I either like to put my hands by my chest and or reach out in front. If you're struggling to get your hips behind you, reaching out in front will help to counterbalance yourself. Contract and lengthen. All right, guys, great job. Keep on moving. Have a great day.